Oh man, it's the grab bag!
So it's come up once again. People trying to claim that video games have always been political. That's not true. I mean, you only have to go back to the very beginning of video games to understand. Politics have not been in video games since the very beginning. The first video game ever created. Some claim that it is tennis for two, but most people would just think of Pong. They are basically very similar, but anyways. Pong was one of the earliest games ever seen. It happened to be a very simple game where you have a puck and two shields, basically, and the person on each side moves their particular shield or bouncer back and forth to bounce the puck. And that's it. That's the game. Real political, huh? Then you can jump up a generation. What about asteroids? I mean, you do fight aliens in it, right? Well, yes, you do fight some aliens in asteroids, but the game's really just about shooting asteroids to gain points. The thing is, politics did come into games, but sometimes it was just an inspiration. During the era of the Nintendo, you started to see games that were military themed. Operation Wolf, Russian Attack, and these were games that you could say were starting to pick up some political themes, specifically fighting against communists or the Viet Cong, essentially, and games where you were military people did show up, but for every game that was directly human versus human, you also had games like Contra, or, well, let's go with Mario, or Adventure Island, or other games. And overall, direct politics, even though they began to creep in, they weren't the main thing. If you look at the most important video games from any particular era, you will begin to notice that the majority of games are not political, or if they do have politics, they are specific politics in that universe. Nobody's going to look at The Legend of Zelda and think that the original Legend of Zelda game is a political game. You play a hero trying to rescue a princess and collect the magical artifact called the Triforce that was broken into 8 pieces. And that's the game itself. There's no politics in the original Legend of Zelda. So let me tell you what happened and why this became a talking point. You see, during the era of the PlayStation 3, give or take 2012 to 2014, it began to become a talking point from recently graduated college students and others, that they began to push these ideas into the gaming space. Namely, one organization ran by Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency. That might be a name you haven't heard from in quite a while because they kind of had fallen apart. However, she had gone on to move into the actual gaming field, and all you have to do to look at her work is go look at Mass Effect Andromeda. So anyways, she was one of the people who began pushing this idea that games were always political. And jumping to her defense were gaming journalists, who at that point, at the beginning of Gamergate, started to push these anti-gamer ideas and started calling every video game political. That's also when movies became political and everything else became always about politics. Because the people who were in positions of power wanted to push these notions onto the people to basically call half of the audience racist or bigots because they just simply wanted to play video games. Simple point that we are trying to get out is that you don't have to make everything political. There can be apolitical games. You don't have to put real-world politics into games that are political. You can just create your own universe. Let's just point out, this is a movie example, but When you're watching Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, do you see in the Battle of Hoth, World War I, trench warfare? Or do you see people on an ice planet fighting against a giant four-legged walking machine? It's simple. What we want is, if there is going to be politics into the games, you make it wholly universal for that particular game. Like, it is that universe's rules, laws, everything. It's one of the major issues currently going on with a lot of films and everything, is everybody wants to push real-world politics and not create a self-contained story. And it's fine if you want to play a game that is overtly political or has modern politics. It's also fine if you don't. The point is that you should just simply accept that not all games are political. Some games are. Some games are very political about the real world, and some games are made up with their own politics. And it's fine to enjoy what you enjoy. But we should stop trying to force everybody to agree on the same thing, that every game was political always. That we should stop trying to force each other to like things that we don't actually like. And that maybe these games journalists and other people can just finally leave gamers alone, because gamers just want to play games. And that's that. Well, anyways, I'll catch you next time.
Oh, what are you still doing here for? I suppose if you're going to stay, you might as well like, comment, and subscribe. Well, we'll catch you later.